The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those Knuckleheads of Liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. We are coming at you on May 11, 2022, just almost a year and a half into this horrifying administration. But we have a break for that from that for you guys today. We're going to be talking about PorcFest coming up. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our lower right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have our special guest today, Dennis Pratt. He is a free stater from the free state of New Hampshire, and he has been involved with organizing the PorcFest, and that's what's coming up this year. So we're going to ask him to talk a little bit about that. And my name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So PorcFest, tell us a little bit about PorcFest, Dennis, and you know, this thing is coming up on June 20th through the 26th, and
that's right.
And I'm sure some of our listeners would love to hear about some of these great things going on in Liberty around the country. So I'll hand it over to you.
Well, PorcFest stands for the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It's pork as in porcupine, not pork as in pig. Although we do have a big pig roast at the very end, so if you do like pig roast, you'll enjoy it there. I try to explain to the celebritarians what PorcFest is relative to all the other libertarian conferences. This is really more of a simulation of a week in living in liberty. So it's basically an immersion into this experience of living in a voluntary win-win exchange society. And so we have, last year we had 90 different hubs of people offering different types of vending or lounges or venues where we're giving talks and that type of thing. We had 700 events going on throughout the week. And an event could be like a workshop or a panel or a discussion. It also could be a knitting group or what have you. So, you know, all different people doing all different types of things. The underlying theme, though, is that we are all libertarian. We're there for the Free State Project. The Free State Project is this attempt to actually create a freed society in one place in the world, in a small state of New Hampshire. And so about 19 years ago, we had our first PorcFest. It was called Escape to New Hampshire. And the purpose of that festival was to convince the people who were trying to vote for which state would be the free state, which state they would choose to try to start up the free state, that they would choose us. And so what we did was we had this gigantic party out in the mountains of New Hampshire, the North New Hampshire, and invited everybody who's going to vote. Said, come on out here, see what New Hampshire's like, and then vote. And that was one of several reasons why New Hampshire won. But we are the longest continuous freedom festival in the world. We won that last year, or 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? When everyone shut down for COVID. This is the free state. We don't shut down for COVID. So everyone else was locked up, and we were having our PorcFest right there. So we're now 19 years, and next year will be our double X, our 20th anniversary.
Well, yeah, that's pretty interesting, and also too with the whole COVID thing. I know, like even Freedom Fest, because they were set to go in Las Vegas, they got shut down, and that's part of the reason they went to South Dakota the following year. So yeah, it's great that you guys were able to keep the tradition going.
Well, I think a lot of people.
But I'm sorry, but that raises a question though. How did you all handle COVID then? I mean, I know the state of New Hampshire did have restrictions and all that kind of. How did you all handle that?
Well, we weren't supposed to have it, so we told them that we were going to have it, and then we invited the governor to come and and speak at it. We had a thing of enter at your own risk, and do take care of yourself. We had special bands. I was actually going through some cancer treatments, so I actually exercise a lot of prudence. At the time, I was one of the ones who wore the band, and even though I'm kind of a huggy guy, I didn't hug.
Okay.
But it is, it's a campsite, so we were all outdoors. It's out in the sun, so it's all sunny. So in a way, it was a pretty safe environment. We also were, it's a fairly young group, so in terms of. Unless you were listening to the government, you knew that the risk was fairly low. But still, we're libertarians. The people who didn't want to come didn't come. It was actually one of our lowest attended festivals. We had only 900 people show up for that particular festival. So that was one of our lowest ever. Well, except the first ones. I mean, in modern time. But we had a grand time, and I have to say, the parents who came up, it's PorcFest is a very kid-friendly place. A lot of families come. I always say that the people who have the most fun at PorcFest are the preteens. So they're like the 10-year-old to 14-year-old group. These kids. Especially where they were coming from, we're trying to get people from the authoritarian 49 to come. Okay. So they're locked down. Now they come to PorcFest and they're free. They're running all over this gigantic campground, and they are so entrepreneurial. And there's all these opportunities for them to make money. Last year, there were kids who left PorcFest with over $1,000 in dollars, gold, silver, Bitcoin, gold backs, whatever, So they're going out there, they're trading the services, they're helping vendors sell things, and they have such a great time there.
So you said your last year event during COVID, of course, was attended by about 900. So in a normal year, quote unquote normal year, what is a normal attendance?
Well, that's a good question. So our normal average is around 1,200 people. And we've been doing that. Our biggest high before I took over was 1,500.
Okay.
1,500. Last year was the first year we sold out, and I sold 2,500. This year we're already sold out also, and it's going to be it's more than 2,500. It'll be about 2,800.
Oh wow. Okay, that's pretty good.
And so one thing just to clarify too. So is this meant to be something where you camp for a whole week then, or is it something where people can come for a day or two? Is that sort of the way it works? Well,
no, it's an immersion. It's an immersion experience. So you come for the week. The people will still, the tickets aren't all that expensive. So the people will come for a day, and there's so much going on, so much excitement, so much fun that, you come for a day and it's well worth the money for a day. But, it's this experience of living in liberty. We spend our lives living in authoritarianism all the time. And so what would it feel like if you lived in liberty? Now, it's interesting. The longer the Free State Project has been going on, and we're actually accelerating, we're getting more of a feeling of liberty living in New Hampshire, because we're just, we're pushing back on the laws and all that type of stuff. So at some point, and I hope it's going to be soon. It's going to be PorcFest 365 here in New Hampshire. So you won't have to go to a festival to go into this simulation immersion program to find out what would it be like. How would I feel? Would I feel different? Would I feel different? I mean, let me. The first time I heard about PorcFest was one of my. Yes. He's one of my ex-socialist friends, or one of my socialist friends who lives in California, so lives in your state, guys. And he was telling me, well, if you're a libertarian, you really should know about this Free State Project. And I just poo-pooed him, what does the socialist know about libertarianism? But I kept on hearing about it. And so finally, it was my birthday. My birthday falls on PorcFest. And so Carol, my wife, was going somewhere, and she said, well, you can do anything you want. I said, well, I'm going to go up and I'm going to spend one day. I'll go up for one day, honey, and see what this PorcFest is about. I've just been curious and stuff like that. So I went up there, and first of all, there's all these like culture shocks when you go into a freedom environment. I'm coming from authoritarian states. I've lived in 6 different authoritarian cities, Chicago and Boston, and I grew up in New York City and Boulder, but you walk in there and there's a lot of people who are armed, right? I mean, that's true generally in New Hampshire, but in PorcFest, there's a lot of people just open carrying, and they're open carrying long rifles and things like that. And I'm going, I was totally freaked out. I had never seen that. I'm a city boy. I've never seen that. But I slowly started getting into it. And by the end of the day, I was supposed to head back. I call up my wife and go, honey, I'm having a really good time. I'm gonna take one more day. I'm gonna take one more day, right? And so the next day, I'm getting even more into it. I'm really going to relax and enjoying the conversations, philosophical conversations here and talks there, and then we go explore this. And and I called my wife that night. I said, honey, one more day. I'll be back. I'll be back on Thursday. So anyway, this happened throughout the entire week. I spent the whole week. I went up there for one day. I spent the whole week. I have gone up there. This will be my 9th PorcFest, and every single one I actually go up now the weekend before, just to kind of acclimate myself, and get into that space. I am an old fart. So last year the festival actually sang when I'm 64 for my birthday. My song, they didn't sing happy birthday, so they sang when I'm 64. But I like staying in the hotels. Give me a bath, give me some quiet, all that type of stuff. So I'll go over to the park and early in the morning and go and go to the different hubs and see different people and hang out in various lounges and talk to people and eat there. And I actually have a whole, set of changes of clothes in the car because we're up in the mountains. So it can be 90 degrees and then it could get this freezing rain. And, so I got boots in there. I got coats, raincoats and short pants and T-shirts. And then I've got, supplies of beers, different types of beers. So that, you go into a hub and you go, hey, I got some beer, and you make instant friends and stuff. And then I go back to the hotel and kind of chill out, by 2:00 in the morning or something like that. So it's just, I can't do that now because I'm organizing the darn festival. I got to stay there. I get one of the cabins though, and at least get a bed.
So Dennis, you say that PorcFest is really and truly an immersion into the state of liberty. We could say, right? Now, what events do you guys have that will allow people to experience that immersions, that sense of liberty? What events do you all have?
Yeah, and this is actually one of the things that's hard to explain to people who've never really experienced this, because I mean, we libertarians have conventions, right? You've all gone to conventions. You know what a libertarian convention is. It's very interesting and erudite. You go to this, and then there might be tracks, and you go and sit down in a room, and then you go to another room, and then you'll have like maybe a wine and cheese breakout, and you'll enjoy that, and maybe you'll meet up with somebody and go out to dinner. So I mean, we do that too out here in the Free State, but that's not what PorcFest is. PorcFest, especially the way that I redesigned it 2 years ago to be really decentralized. So it's not kind of top down. People keep saying, well, what's the schedule going to be at PorcFest? I go, well, I don't know, because it's going to be these hubs that are going to be creating their different schedules. So each hub, so we have a Christian hub, right? And the Christian hub is going to have talks by various people that they bring in, and other people about various aspects of religion and Christianity and libertarianism. And then they have, last year they had a debate about whose religion is the most libertarian. They had discussion, is Jesus a libertarian? So they have their whole thing going on there. You go to the Liberty Ecclesia hub, and you're having a good time there with them. I love going over there, even though I'm an atheist. Oh, this year we actually have an atheist hub created.
Okay.
So there's an atheist hub, and they're going to talk about the logic and this and that. And I actually want them to get together with the Liberty Ecclesia and maybe have a debate and have discussion, that type of thing. So the experience is, a lot of people will say, I could never understood what PorcFest was, because you have to actually experience it. Because so much of the interactions occur unplanned. You're walking down and you start talking to a group of people, and you meet someone else, and then you get into this philosophical discussion, and then they say, oh, well, we're going to this other group, and you say, well, I don't know anything about that, and they go, oh, come on, and you go and you experience that. So it's a very decentralized, very, very much exploratory. So if you think of authoritarianism as being kind of a top-down, hierarchical, we're going to impose this on you. Now think of a spontaneous generating a festival, spontaneously generated, with all different types of people able to create whatever they want to create, and they create it. So last year, for example, literally there was a knitting hub. Now, had I been the type of authoritarian organizer that other places have, I would have come up with, here's what people want to do. They want to knit. I'm way too male for that. I don't know what that, knitting. But they had these knitting circles, and they knitted something. They knitted something that was actually for the festival, and then they would have conversations about, I think this was a lot about parenting and homeschooling that they did there. But they were all knitting, and it was absolutely fabulous. We had a women's hub last year where they were talking about women's issues and women in liberty and all that type of stuff. So the question is, imagine the diversity of humanity, right? Libertarianism really is reflective of the diversity of humanity. Libertarianism is a very thin ethic. We're not going to violate your self-ownership. That's basically what libertarian is, right? So you are a self-owner. We're not going to enslave you, and you be whoever you're going to be. Now, on top of that, there's going to be all these customs and traditions and religions that you can put on top of libertarianism. As long as you do not violate your fellow man, you can be a libertarian, right?
Yes.
So it's a very thin, I see it as a very thin ethic on top of which we can have morals and cultures and preferences and stuff like that. So what PorcFest is, okay, look, this is steadfast, right? You can do with your body and with your property, your site, your campsite, whatever you want to do. You may not violate anyone else, okay? So that's the basic ground rules. And now I'm going to give you like these little Lego tools to build your hub, and whatever it is that you find exciting, whatever it is that you're excited about, you go ahead and build it and produce it. I do control 2 hubs myself. And you can actually say maybe I control 3 hubs out of the 90 or so. I control the big.
Is that top-down central planning type control, or what kind of control are you referring to?
Well, like libertarianism says you can do whatever your body and your property, but guess who gets control of your body and your property in libertarianism? You do, right? So I own those hubs. I own these 3 hubs. I own the pavilion where we do have the celebritarians come. Well, we have the big talks where we're gonna have a talk from left to Trump to liberty. It's gals from left to Trump to liberty. So we have a panel of women who, were in the left. they transitioned to Trump for a short period, and then they found liberty. They're like, wait, what's this liberty thing here? I never heard about this. And then I also control another hub, which is for excuse me. Which I call the Liberty 101, where we teach basics of libertarianism, basics of economics, basics of the free state, basics of New Hampshire, basics of crypto, basics of guns, basics of law, the institutions that we're building and things like that. So kind of an intro to people who are coming to the festival, but they may not be super libertarian yet. Or they may not know a particular area.
Well, Dennis, one thing I wanted to ask you about, maybe our Screaming Eagle can jump in on this one too, but you mentioned there's a lot of people walking around with guns, and that there's some, I guess, some things focused on guns. Are there any things related to that? I mean, is it like Gun Owners of America or NRA or something like that sets up a hub?
Yeah, so sometimes it will have vendors who are gun. We had ammo.com come one year, which was actually a really excellent organization. They have a bunch of ANCAPs there, and they're very serious about their libertarianism. Last year we did have a gun hub, and they did safety stuff. They did 3D printing of guns, so you could watch a gun being printed. And talked about different aspects of that, manufacturing, drilling, and then they also had a newbie shoot, and then they had an advanced shoot, off grounds, but they had a newbie shoot and an advanced shoot. Oh, they also had kind of a show and tell, so people came in with their various kits and equipment and stuff like that, and people could kind of look and go and talk and stuff like that. So for the gun folks, which I still am not, I have to say, but they loved it. They loved it. For them, they're not over in the knitting, although there were some knitters over there, But we have a number of gun clubs here and gun organizations, and free staters are pretty strong in almost all of those. So they'll usually show up and help people, and I know that people really enjoy going on the shoots.
It almost sounds like Burning Man without the scheduled burn.
Right. Well, actually,
I thought they was going to burn the man on Friday, and here it is Wednesday night. They're burning him now. What's going on here? Well, we got no stop down central planning, so we don't even schedule the burn. It could happen anytime. So there you go.
Well, we do.
Have you been to Burning Man, Dennis?
I've not been to Burning Man. I've not been to Burning Man.
But I thought maybe we could have a comparison.
We do have a burning of the porcupine at the end. So the group builds a porcupine out of the branches and stuff like that, and then they carried it. And then last year, what they did was they had a flamethrower.
Oh boy! Oh yeah!
And so that's how the porcupine was burned, with the flamethrower.
With the flamethrower. Oh yeah. Well, that sounds like a ton of fun right there.
It was. It was.
I could just see a 14-year-old getting on that flamethrower.
Yeah,
I
don't
mean,
think
if that
so.
would have been me at 14, I would have been all down for that one. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think people are pretty responsible, and the kids are. We have a lot of kids coming from out of state, but certainly the kids in state are fairly comfortable with firearms and things like that.
Mm.
Yeah, it's part of the ethos, the culture here.
Well, Dennis,
we're constitutional carry and everything.
Is this a big challenge putting this on every year? I mean, has it come together fairly easily with all of these people, all of these liberty-loving people right there in New Hampshire, or is it a lot of challenges that go into it?
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, I got somebody today who just complains. He says, "Where's the schedule for PorcFest? Why isn't the schedule up?" And the reason why is because the hubs haven't given me their schedules yet. So, at the end, everyone's like going, "Oh, well, we're gonna have this and this," and they're throwing stuff at me, and it's very hard. So, a lot of it is me kind of cajoling, and then making suggestions, and going, "Oh, what are you really interested in? Well, why don't you do something around that?" And somebody's saying, well, a lot of times people say, well, you know what PorcFest should do? And guess what I reply? Well, why don't you do it? Here are the tools. You can actually create that. And people will say, really? I can just, yeah, go ahead, do it. So that's a pretty big challenge. That takes up a lot of my time is interfacing with a lot of people who believe, Leon, you and I were talking about this before. They have these beliefs that they can't do things, or they need official permission to do things, or and it's like, no. Tell me, Leon, what do you really love to do? And so Leon would come back and he'd say, well, I really love the steel drums. You know what you should have is a steel drum. I think, well, why don't you create a steel drum hub? and we actually have a drumming hub last year, which was super popular. Just all different types of drums. Not a single steel drum, Leon. Opportunity.
There we go.
The thing that really keeps me up at night is kind of basics. Sewage, water. Last year we ran out of water, which was really.
That sounds like a Burning Man type of thing.
Oh,
running out of water.
Well, I can't tell you that. The logistics of this thing. I won't call myself the organizer. I call myself the chef de village from Club Med. The title from Club Med, kind of the chief of the village, chef de village. And I really want to do kind of that hub and helping people create whatever it is that they want to do. But so much of this is logistics that we just have to work on that infrastructure stuff.
Well, Dennis, we've got logistics here too. We're almost out of time, but is there one final thought you want to leave the audience with about PorcFest before we're done?
Well, if you're a libertarian and you really, really, really love liberty, first of all, you got to come out to the Free State. And we'll show you a fantastic time no matter when you come. But if you want a super, super, super experience, there's nothing like PorcFest.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dennis. And for our audience, thank you for joining us again. And until next time, stay free.
Indeed.
Toodaloo.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.